Hello, everybody. Welcome to Inside the Chain podcast show, and I'm joined by Charlotte Mahoney, owner of QSA Limited. Thanks for joining me, Charlotte.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And I didn't press record, so this is the second time we're doing the intro bit. My listeners' promise is that we'll hear a practitioner's view of what a quality management system can actually do for a business when it stops being a compliance exercise and becomes part of how a company runs. So that's what we're going to get today. And I'm hoping, framing wise, we're looking at the difference between a quality management that sits in a folder, sits in a drawer, and one that's genuinely embedded in the business. I'm going to put a 3-part running order for the show. What a good QMS actually does, what supplier evaluation really looks like, and then we'll touch upon a bit of AI in quality and auditing and how that can be practical, responsibly done. It's already here. We need to be embracing it. The first question, you may have heard this before. Can you describe a good QMS, or rather, you've described to me a good QMS as something that helps sort out the chaos. Could you just explain what you mean by that, please?
Sure. Okay. So, as I've already said, chaos can, if you don't have this can apply to companies that don't have 9001 or don't have a management system, or have it but aren't necessarily using it effectively. And the chaos, the way that I describe it as chaos and chaotic is, if you find that you are continually reacting to things that are going wrong, you find that you're firefighting, you're always, just dealing with literally what's coming up now. You never have the time to sit back and look and assess why that happened. That quite often leads to a culture of blame, because you find, with the reactiveness, it's all hands to the pump. Oh, this has gone wrong, quick, everyone jump on it. So then you've got people doing things that they're not necessarily qualified or trained to do outside their area of expertise. That just adds to the chaos, if you like. And it all stems from things like, undefined responsibilities, lack of control in what you're doing, that then leads you to having, your outputs that you're delivering, your deliverables are inconsistent. One day they're great because everything's gone fine. The next day, everything's gone wrong, but we never get to the bottom of why. And so it's this continual cycle of chaos that we're working in. And, we can't ever get to the point of growth or improvement, because we can't even deal with what we're trying to do just normally, if you like.
Yes. So that's sort of a worst case, and a position that lots of companies find themselves in, because it's okay until something goes wrong, and
Yes.
Sometimes we're in a perfect storm where there are multiple problems, and then it becomes an absolute nightmare, a showstopper. We start to fail to supply customers, don't we? So
Yes.
That's really important. And so when it really works, then you've said to me that people don't know they're doing it because it's embedded. What does that look like on the shop floor or in office, the office environment, when it is working really well?
Well, whatever the opposite of chaos is. So I would, maybe calmness or order. There is that sense of calm around. It can be busy. You can be busy, but it's calm as in everybody knows what they're doing. So it's starting out with things like job description and communication and awareness, which are quite key points in the 9001 standard. It's a case of having ownership of your processes, who's responsible for what, assigning those responsibilities, and then that allows you to pinpoint the things that go wrong a lot easier. So yeah, it is. It is routine. It becomes routine. It's not a separate thing that you're doing to go, oh, I've got to do my quality actions today. It's just the way you work. It's just how things are done. It's part of your operational DNA. It's just, we come in, we do our job, we go home, and that's it. So that's really the opposite. That's when you know you've got a good quality management system that is working for you. You don't know you've got it.
And I liked how, when we were talking earlier, that you'd suggested that the teams are empowered, and yes. People, that people know what they do. They know how to escalate. From a leadership point of view, it brings a certain amount of governance and leadership to how you operate as well. Yeah, what's not
Yes.
to like about that?
Absolutely. Empowerment and accountability are two really important points that are massively overlooked because they're not used as language in any management system that I've seen. But if you empower people and then you hold them accountable, so and in equal measure, you empower somebody by giving them lots of good training and you support them and you mentor them. And at the same time, you hold them accountable when things don't go the way that they should. That, that leads to people become better, people understand their job better. And it's great for cross communication within a business if you can do that and you can achieve that.
Yeah, I really can't agree more. And the research I've done around leadership and developing high performing teams, one of the key facets to developing strong teams is trust. And the research shows that trust is earned through accountability. Um, it's earned through accountability, through pointing out where we've gone wrong, where we can be better, as well as being able to do day in day out. Um,
Absolutely.
what do you see when you walk into a company that has ISO 9001, but it's treating it as a compliance exercise rather than as the business tool that we started to touch upon?
There's a few things, fear is one of them. You see literally fear in people's eyes. I mean, and I'm only the consultant. I only go into I'm there to help, but you already see the
Yeah,
fear. And as I'm taken around sometimes, if I'm conducting internal audits and I'm introduced to somebody in an operational role, and this is Charlotte, she's carrying out an audit on us, and you see fear. So mainly I'd say for a lot of I'm going to say shop floor workers that don't get involved in management decisions and meetings, that I would say fear. From a management level, it's slightly more theatrical, I would say. There's an element of pretense that takes place. There's that pretense of, oh yes, we're doing everything. Yeah, we do it all the time. Everything runs smoothly, but it's not. And if an external auditor's there, so if you do have a management system that is externally audited or assessed, auditors come in and that you haven't done it. It literally is. It's like, you get people that are calm. It's like the swan above the water and then under the water. They'll be passing messages to people, or now it will be like Teams in or WhatsApping groups going, find that document, put something in the folder, and it's all calm and sort of, yeah, I'll get someone to bring that in. Should we have a cup of tea? But actually the reality is, everyone's running around behind the scenes trying to get something ready. That's what it tends to look like at that point. But just general confusion. People, if you read the standard cover to cover and then you try to apply it, it's not easy. It isn't easy to necessarily be able to piece together how it is all meant to fit together and how that actually applies to your management
to your
system. And until
business.
you
Yeah,
get that, when you get that, it's like a light bulb moment. It clicks. Oh yeah, okay, I get it. You're not trying to show something to somebody that doesn't exist. It does. They're just asking you to think about it in a specific way so that they can audit it and measure you against the standard to say whether what you're doing is right or wrong. So you're not necessarily looking for any more. They're just looking for it the way it's presented to be in a certain way.
yeah. And within the standards, that companies are asked to look at internal and external issues. Poor suppliers, untrained people, as we've touched upon, maybe outdated equipment as well. Um, how often do businesses do that honestly, as in taking a real good look at themselves? Um, what do you find around those areas of actually digging into, trying to uncover where the issues are?
It's quite interesting, really, because so this comes under the right at the beginning of the standard, and it comes under a section that's called context of the organisation, and that throws people sometimes like, oh, what does that mean? It basically means who you are, what you do, how you do it, etc. And every company knows that. You can't be a company if you don't know who you are and what you're doing, how you're doing it. Well, you'd at least know how you think you're doing it, whether or not that is real or not. You still have that idea. So I think again, a lot of it comes down to the language. But there's a level of honesty that is required. Most people, when things are going wrong, they've got a good idea what is going wrong. But it's just admitting that is the thing that's going wrong. Yeah, it can be really tough. You know, a lot of industries at the moment, countrywide or nationwide, if you like, are struggling to find good people, especially engineering-based people. It's
Yeah.
a very, very
Yeah.
difficult market. And so because it's a small market, those that are in it know that they are a small pool of people, and that gives them a sense of quite a bit of power. That means that they can demand higher salaries, which, you know, again, for a lot of companies, that's not an option to just keep upping salaries. Not everyone's a multi-global company that has that ability, which means that you find sometimes that some of the employees have more power than the actual owners or top management of the company. So they're kind of beholden to people. So you end up with this mismatched like level of management. Well, I can't tell him off because he'll leave, and if he leaves, I can't do the work. And so it's things like that. So you know that there's an issue with personnel or you know, a resource issue, but you won't admit that you won't document it and say it's an issue. But what that does actually do is it stops you trying to look for other ways to get around it, you know, taking on school leavers and build it like if you can, and training them right the way through, and having clauses in contracts that say that if we're going to train you, or we're going to, you know, give you something special that you haven't had before, that then you have to work for us for a certain period of time to, you know, for us for at least for it to pay for itself, for us to benefit from it. So there is a level of honesty that is required when you are looking at yourself. And it's, you know, it's the same as if you did it to yourself. You know, if you said, okay, my life isn't going great at the moment, why isn't my life going great? You have to be honest and say, well, it's because of this. It's because I'm a shopaholic and I spend all my money on Chinese websites as soon as it drops into my account, and that's the crux of it. Instead of, you know, it's going, I just don't know why, I don't know why it's not working. It's exactly the same in a business. There's a level of
Yeah.
honesty, and if
There's
you can
got
get
to be
your
that honest
management
approach.
group,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, you've got to be honest. Yeah.
Very good. And moving on to the second section around supplier evaluation. I want to dig into here what the standards really asking
Yes.
for. Um, you've described to me in the past that, and I've been here. I'm sure lots of the listeners have been here. The standard 10 dozen page 50 page supplier questionnaire. And I get it at the front end when we're onboarding, we want to get all the detail, but then we're just refreshing it every year. We're sending out this great giant document again, and it becomes this box ticking exercise. And that's not what compliance be about. Just giving the illusion of evaluation, without actually telling you what your supplier's any good at. You know, what's wrong with that model?
Oh, where do I begin? You, you're you where you're putting your compliance is in the wrong place. You're focusing on complying to the standard and making sure that when the auditor or whoever externally, whether that's a customer or an auditor, is going to come and look, you're looking to make sure you're compliant for that. What you're not necessarily doing is looking at whether or not your supplier is compliant to what you need them to be. And ultimately, that's what supplier evaluation is all about. And the reason it's in the standard, and it talks about, you know, outsourcing, whether that's purchasing of products or people's time, or even subcontracting elements of what you do to other companies. For you to say that you know that your product is 100% fit for purpose and is the best version of that thing that you could possibly sell, there's a requirement to know. It's the knowledge of that. So if you are purchasing from a supplier and the quality of what they're sending you is rubbish, it's quite expensive, and it's always 2 weeks late in terms of their planned delivery, are they a good supplier? Probably not. So I tend to use a QCD, quality cost delivery, as I've just mentioned there, and it's very simple. There's nothing else required other than applying those 3 questions to your suppliers, and then perhaps annually asking them, has anything changed? If there's been major changes in their ownership or the management structure, their operations manager's gone, their quality manager or technical manager has left, or you know they've gone over to they've got a new facility or something's changed, then perhaps you might go through the questionnaire process with them again. But if there has been no significant change to that organisation, they've still got their certifications or accreditations that they may have had that drew you to them in the first place, and their quality and their cost and their delivery are acceptable to you, then that is supplier evaluation. Now, some companies have to go way beyond that. That's the absolute bare minimum level that you're looking at. Obviously for some people, especially if you're working worldwide, it goes beyond that. Into supply chain comes things like modern slavery. You've got lots of international laws and regulations that you have to make sure that you're complying to. So obviously, I'm not saying to put all that in the bin and just do quality, cost, and delivery. And this is like top level that we're talking about. But what we're talking about here more specifically is that sending out that questionnaire every year, getting it back, rubber stamping it, and putting it in a folder isn't effective supplier evaluation
Yeah,
necessarily for a business. It's a waste of
yeah,
time for you. The person that gets it every year will not be liking you very much, might be calling you a few choice names under their breath, because when you are a quality manager and you're getting them from all your suppliers, if you've got 65 suppliers, you're getting one of these things every day. It's soul destroying, especially when you know that nothing's changed and you're just going to fill in exactly the same questions on everyone every day. So it's just, think of the person that you're working with. Go and audit them if they're close by or they're available. There are other ways to evaluate a supplier other than filling in a questionnaire, and ask yourself really, how much does that actually tell you about what the item they're supplying rather than them as an organization.
yeah, yeah. And if you've got those metrics, quality, cost, delivery, they're important to make sure that the operation runs, aren't they?
Absolutely.
And it meets the financial needs of the business that you're in. So yeah, do that supplier evaluation. Keep on top of that. It's probably going to help you out keeping an eye on what's coming over the horizon. If we see QCD metrics trending in the wrong direction, that's what the evaluation should be around, not just a tick box at every year with an update. Yeah, I understand
Absolutely.
that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's it. I think that, as you said there, has anything significant changed? That's the question that we should be asking. Has anything significant changed, metric-wise, or if you've got that supplier intelligence of being able to understand your market a bit more closely? Yeah, business as usual is great, but what's changed? That makes really good sense. Real good
Yeah.
sense. And I mean, yeah, from a supply chain perspective, are there any other early warning signs that a supplier is about to become a problem? I mean, we've touched upon it there, haven't we? What metrics, or how in practice, how can companies set something up, put a tool in motion that helps them track QCD or other supplier metrics?
So quality. So obviously, if you've got a good goods in sort of receipt process where you're logging things coming in, depending on what you're receiving and how many you're receiving, some kind of sampling exercise, especially if it's a component level product. If you're ordering 10,000 of a particular component that you're going to be using, I would definitely recommend, batch or batch testing or sampling some of those products to look at the quality. That's how you're going to look at the quality. There's sampling standards out there if that's a necessity for you, but you start sampling. If you're happy with what your samples are telling you, then you know that, and you're not getting, I guess it's sampling at goods in and also internal reject. They're going to be your two quality metrics. Cost, I would imagine that by continually looking at the market, most suppliers now have at least one competitor. There are some very niche products out there that don't, but most, there is more than one. Obviously, factoring where they are in the world, you've got the cost of receiving, and obviously with the situation that's going on in the world at the moment, they might be cheaper, but are you going to get them? So then that's where your cost and delivery metrics come in. Delivery is based on the planned delivery. I would measure from planned delivery to delivery date or to date of receipt, and that will show you if you are actually receiving things when you're expecting to receive them.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, some good basics that should be fundamental, shouldn't they, of that control piece. Within operational environments, I'm sure we've both seen, haven't we, production managers who are also acting as quality managers. And I'm not saying that we all shouldn't have that, the eye on quality and the eye on the data from business development at that front end, from bringing in the right sort of customers into the business, to supply chain and procurement functions who bring partners into the business who are supplying those materials. But then operationally, it seems to be often those production managers who get given a quality manager job because it just doesn't exist, and they end up drowning in documentation and the supply questionnaires, etc. What would you tell them about how to make that workload manageable without losing the rigor of what the documentation is trying?
Yeah, I mean, quality management and quality assurance are different things. So, obviously, a quality management is very much from the top down. And so you can have responsibility. You can be a production manager, operations manager, and have a responsibility for quality in the area that you're working in. And like you said, that should be part and parcel. When you are actually assigned the role of quality manager for a specific standard or for the entire company, that is different. And it's not easy, because I don't see quality in small companies. Definitely companies less than 20 or maybe even 30, 40 employees. A full-time quality manager is not always necessary, depending on what you're doing. But it's definitely not in companies that I've worked with in the past. It isn't necessary. It's just having people that understand. So it comes back to the training and awareness. If you are a production manager, an ops manager, and you are given the responsibility of quality as well, the first thing you want to do is say, okay, I'll accept it on the understanding that I will receive some training. Now, that doesn't have to be an expensive training course. It can be mentoring. I mentor people because sometimes it works better when you can apply quality in real time. So, I can be available and somebody can call me and say, look, this has happened. If I take my production hat off and I put my quality hat on, how should I be managing this? And we talk through that scenario from a quality perspective rather than a production perspective. And they are very, very closely interlinked. It's just, it's the reporting side of things. You're looking at non-conformances and you're looking at root cause analysis. And for some people, you're looking at extent and impact. What was the impact of that non-conformance? How many or how much of something has that affected? How far back have we got to go? Have we got to recall things? And I think sometimes production's primary role is to keep things happening, whereas the quality role can be we're going to stop it. So
stop happening again.
So you've got a conflict there. So it's a difficult one. So it's, again, empowerment. So if that person is then trained and has an understanding of what the role is, they can be empowered to say, I can't make decisions on this because there's a conflict of interest. I can't, I'm paid an incentive to keep it going, but you're also asking me to do the role that says stop it because it's not working. I'm not going to stop it because I want my extra money at the end of the month. So it's that, there's a lot of training, empowering, trust, again, and honesty around the management team to say, look, this can work.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That really is enlightening, because they are natural conflicts, aren't they? And to put people into those compromised situations without the right level of training, without the right level of support, that's not the leadership that we want to be displaying. I would suggest. But I'm also really interested. That's it with your clients. You make yourself available to talk through that. That you just can't beat learning on the job. To have the real life example of day to day happening in front of you with, a professional who can sit at the side and work it through with you. That sounds like a really good support mechanism there. And that's what you do with some of your clients, is it?
It is. It's strange, but I sometimes say that I'm the Mary Poppins of the quality management world, because my job really is to work my way out of a job. My job is to go in, especially for people, you know, if there is a struggle or there's a problem or it doesn't exist, my role is to go in, build successfully, get through whatever they want to get through, train, explain, so that I can walk away and go, look, you don't need me anymore. You're fine. I can come back. And if you need me, I'm always here. But ideally, if I can work a client to a point that they say to me, do you know what, Charlotte, I feel really bad, but we don't want you to come back. It's like, because we're doing so well,
Yeah, yeah,
then I know that I've done my job properly. So that's when I know that it is embedded, because they don't need me anymore. And I've got many clients like that, and it's very satisfying. It's slightly scary because I've then got to go out and find somebody else to replace them,
yeah,
but very satisfying to know that they truly get it and they continue. And I do check to make sure that they've still got their certificates and that everything's going fine. You know, maybe perhaps the first couple of years they might ask me a few questions, and then it's like, go, my children, fly.
yes. I, I love it here on, Inside the Chain podcast show. We've just found out Charlotte Mahoney is the Mary Poppins
Secretly
of the world. There you go.
But it
Does she
is that.
Does she fly on the broom? Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, yeah. No, she has an umbrella.
On a broom, sorry. Yeah, on an umbrella. On an umbrella.
That's it. But yeah, no, and I think that is, for me, that's really important, because adding quality, especially adding certification or accreditation to a company, it's expensive. And whether that's the use of external resource and the auditing that you have to factor in, it is expensive. But it pays great dividends once it's done. If it's done and it's done properly, that's what I think.
Done properly, yes.
And that's quite often the problem.
Yeah, some companies will use it as a tick box to get doors opened.
Yeah,
but
and it's such a shame. It's a waste.
It's
such a waste, because it's such a good tool. You don't need any fancy software. You don't need any. I mean, we'll get onto AI, but essentially, you can write it all down. You can have it all documented in spreadsheets, forms, etc. Not much, and it will tell you so much about who you are and what you do. And it's so important. And it's, you're like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so you use the information.
Low cost entry point, and with that bit of guidance, get it started. Yeah, get it started.
Absolutely.
As we've touched upon there, just nicely segueing into the final section of the podcast show. I'd like to talk to you about AI in quality and auditing, and how we do that. I mean, it's here, isn't it? It's here. So you've been using AI to support your audit work for some time, and you can't imagine. Can you tell me what you're using it for and what's changed?
Yeah, so like everyone else, I dabbled with a bit of AI for a while and just couldn't quite work out what the big noise was all about, what it was all about. And then the penny dropped that it's not just enhanced Google. There is actually a lot more behind AI than when you start to go a bit deeper into it and you start to look into it a bit more. I have been writing audit reports for some of my clients for quite a few years. So my own impartiality and independence could be questionable to some degree, because I have a certain familiarity with what I've looked at over the years. So the way I've been using AI is to be a second pair of eyes for me. For example, taking the text out of a report and saying, these are the last 3 reports I've done. This is what I found this time. This is what I'm going to report. Am I being impartial? Can you see any trends in me not being impartial, or with me overlooking things, or applying a light touch because for whatever reason we are human beings and we have our own ways and habits of doing things. So I've been using AI to kind of sanity check some of my decisions and tell me from its own independent point, because it's not emotion. There's no emotions attached to it. It doesn't get paid if the audit is good or bad. So it's been really interesting, and I'm quite pleased actually that no, it hasn't found any conflicts in what I've done. It's picked out some of my language is a bit old fashioned, but I learned it the old fashioned way. So that's where I've been working with it. Now I've started to look at the whole process. So I do for all my audits, I use checklists and I gather evidence as I go. So now I'm looking at using AI to help with like a lot of conditional formatting. So as soon as I change a C for conforming to NC for non-conforming or OFI for opportunity for improvement, it's automatically applying a RAG system to it. That for the client makes it easier for them to see. It allows me to pick out those to make sure that they get reported properly going forwards. Asking it, uploading a checklist and saying to it, what kind of evidence would you expect to see? This is what I've looked at, but what would you, if you were doing this audit, what would you be looking at? And it's really interesting. And it has picked up on things and I've been, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I haven't thought of that. Because when you work on your own, as so many of us consultants do, it's ourselves in our own heads, in our own thoughts that generate, the processes and actually do the work. So it is like having a second person there that
Second
you
pair
can
of
sort
eyes,
of,
yeah. And,
that
and
you can sanity check, which is really interesting.
And that's it on these reports. How many of them are ever going round a team of everybody to look at and all add their comments into it? And as you say, that the fact that you can be getting those outputs on the fly as it's happening, you're getting your RAG list built, you're
Yes.
getting things moved and further lists created. It sounds really exciting. That it just takes away some of that. Okay, I'm going to go away and I'm going to spend hours and hours and days on putting things, just automating some of those tasks that
Yes.
can be automated seems to make sense. And I think, as you said, using it as a data reviewer, you're retaining the accountability, as I see it, because the professional judgment and the sign off is still yours. You still add that. Here's where I'm at. Go away for review, and it's still coming back for that final check, isn't it?
100%. And I think I don't know about the future, and I think it would be sad if in the future we don't look at the outputs of AI, whatever they are, however clever and amazing they are. There's always going to be an output from it, and to make a human judgment on that output, I think is incredibly important. Some of us of a certain age have spent a long time building up our knowledge to where it is, and as amazing and clever and quick as AI is, there's still elements of it that I don't think it can replace that 30, 40 years of industry knowledge working with lots of different people. Not yet.
No.
It doesn't have that in those memories of when I was there, this happened, when I was there, that happened, and I'm going to combine that. It keeps you honest and it maintains your integrity, but your reputation is your reputation. And if you haven't read that document before you've signed it and handed it over to somebody that's come out of AI, then I think you're perhaps setting yourself up for potential problems in the future.
Very good. And are you using the one tool, multiple tools? How integrated are you, or are the systems that you're using?
So at the moment, I use two tools, and they're very similar, but they do certain things in a different way. I don't know. Are we going to name names, or should we just keep it generic?
Keep it general. Don't give it away.
No. Okay. So I use two tools at the moment, although I was speaking to somebody about another tool yesterday. We've had conversations about other tools. So I've got this list that I'm building up of tools that I like to use. I do find that different ones are good at different things. I think that it's great if you've got two that are similar, because they can then sanity check each other before you then make the final judgment call. So you're not basing it all on one. You've got a couple of opinions in there. But yeah, and I mean, interestingly, I'm a member of the CQI, and I had an email just today about some kind of podcast or something, web, and it's all about AI. It was called something like, I can't think what it was called, but it was a training. Oh, transforming. No. Which one was it? Traditional versus modern auditing, and it's talking about what happens when traditional audit methods meet AI and digital tools. So this is being talked about in the industry.
Yeah,
It's not
you're
like
on the
we're
forefront
not going
of that.
rogue. Yeah, this isn't,
Yeah,
a couple of consultants going, oh, I'm being cheeky, I'm doing something. Because there is that element to AI that everyone's like,
yeah,
is it cheating? Is it, no, it's enhancing. It's like
enhancing. Yeah,
Photoshop. It's Photoshop for the work you're doing. It's making what you had better. And I think as long as
even
you,
not least of all,
yeah,
adding that clarity, as you said, just some different wording makes it clearer because you've been running it in a certain way through how you approach it. Yeah, just to get that other viewpoint, just freshens
yeah,
it up, doesn't it? And
absolutely.
developed a data policy around what goes in, what doesn't go in, for instance.
Yes, I'm very particular about what goes in and what doesn't go in. So I remove as much data or information that could, that is relevant to clients as much as possible. I mean, obviously, document numbers don't mean anything to AI. They really don't. There could be 10 companies that have got the same document number because quite a few of mine do. QPO1 is out there in the ether in lots of different forms. So yeah, but I'm very particular. I always remove logos, I remove names, I remove company names. I just replace it with XXX. It's quite
Yeah,
easy in
yeah.
Word to go in and do a Control H, isn't it, and just shift everything out. Sometimes bits and pieces are in there, but I also have a policy that I do have in place that makes sure that, from a GDPR perspective, you can, and it's a great thing with AI. You can even ask the tool that you're putting the data into before you do, is this compliant to GDPR? If I do this, if I give you this and ask you to do this, am I going to break any GDPR rules? So you can actually ask it to check before you've actually done the work. But no, I have a system now. I have
So it's
my own
about
procedure that I follow. Yeah,
adapting that anything that can
yeah,
identify the data to keep it general.
100%. Yeah.
Very good. And my closing question then for you, Charlotte, for a business owner or operations leader who's got ISO 9001 sitting in a folder and hasn't looked at it since the last audit, they exist, don't they?
They
What
do.
one thing would you want them to do differently starting next week?
If it's in a folder and it hasn't been looked at for a while, put that folder in the bin. Put it in
Really,
the
yeah,
bin. Yeah, and just start, not necessarily start from scratch, but just section by section, think about what it's actually asking you. We've just spoken about AI. You can get information off of there or speak to somebody that, has knowledge. You can always, give me a call because it isn't as difficult as you think it is. And once you've put the pieces together and you've joined the dots, it's not difficult to carry on. Businesses are running as businesses successfully already. So it's not as if you put that folder in the bin, your business is going to stop and you're going to have to shut down. Of course it's not. It just means that that box ticking exercise goes away and you're going
would
to look
take that
more
box
at
ticking
embedding.
exercise away.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
think of it as something that can enhance the business, that can enhance the
Yes,
teams.
yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
just a mind.
yeah, look at joining the dots between what the standard's saying and what you've already got, instead of writing something special to what you think the standard wants you to say you're doing. You're already
Yeah,
doing it somewhere.
yeah. I, I don't mind plugging your work because I know what you deliver for your clients. But that's it. Really have a conversation, and a starting
Yeah,
point is can you
yeah.
offer me some guidance? Isn't a bad starting point either, is it?
No, it's not, and it's not. I'm not one of these. I don't have a stopwatch on my desk. It's not. You answer the phone and you hit start, and you're like, oh well, that's 7.5 minutes. That's I should send that invoice out. No, if people are interested, I will. If you've got a question that you want to ask me about quality, I'm happy to talk about it. Somebody interested in what I do, woohoo, that's great. And we all need help sometimes without having to pay for absolutely everything. So no, it shouldn't always be that way. Obviously, you can't stay on the phone for 8 hours and give somebody non-stop consultancy because unfortunately we've all got jobs and we've all got bills. But I think that community of having a chat with somebody and just getting a few pointers, why not? Why not? It just makes the world a nicer place.
Well said. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining me today on Inside the Chain podcast show, Charlotte. That's been brilliant, and And yeah, I think this is it. What I've learned, yeah, when quality is embedded, everything changes. I think that you'd agree, wouldn't you? But get it embedded, make the changes.
Absolutely. Don't even think of it as a separate thing. Think of it as something that kind of sits with everything you do. That's it. It should not be that thing that you have to go, oh, I've got to do that today. No, or oh, I've got to do that. As quite often it is when it's not embedded. It's a thing that people don't like doing. But yeah, absolutely. Embrace it, use it within the company. And I guarantee, I've always seen that it has a really positive impact on anyone that does it properly. So yeah,
For
100%.
sure. And if you want to get me started, hey, I'll give you a plug. Give Charlotte a call.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Please do.
Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for
Okay.
having me on. You take care.
Bye-bye.